All right, welcome to Question Everything. We are live with Craig Merriweather here, a certified clinical hypnotherapist, medical hypnosis specialist, neuro-linguistic programming or NLP specialist, and founder of Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. And he's helping people to eliminate the negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and all of those other things that may be keeping them from reaching their full potential. Now, for over 12 years, he's been helping people heal from early childhood trauma, helping cancer patients with pain control, veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, students with test anxiety, the list goes on, entrepreneurs with confidence, athletes with peak performance, and anyone who may be dealing with overwhelm, fear, and anxiety. Now, he's recently created ACE Any Test, the most comprehensive course for test anxiety relief so people can eliminate anxiety around exams, auditions, job interviews, and public speaking. And then to top it off, as well as increase confidence and self-esteem. Now, Craig, an introduction like that, man, what do you not do for people? This is what everyone in our field needs.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you should say that. First off, Gregory, thank you for inviting me to be on the show. I've been looking forward to this for a couple of weeks now. And but in terms of what I don't do, it's interesting to put it like that because I don't fix people. And hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix people. You fix yourself. And that's why you can have a list like that, because I'm not a specialist per se in all those little attributes of the mind, because again, I don't fix people. People will fix themselves. And that's what's extraordinary about this work of therapeutic hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming, these kind of modalities. It's different than talk therapy. I'm not here to delve into the aspects of your hurt and pain. You know what it is. You don't need my advice about it. You don't need me to analyze it. You know what the problem is. Even if it's in the unconscious mind, you know what it is because it's your mind. Maybe it's just you're not consciously aware of it at the moment, but you know what the issue is. You know what the root issue is. And maybe it's not what you think it is. Maybe it's the hurt and pain that happened back in childhood that's now kind of been triggered because of what you went through in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. And so, again, this isn't something I go around with a magic wand and I tap people on their heads and I fix them. You fix yourself, because who better to know what the problem is and, more importantly, to know what the answer is than you. So fix yourself. And that's what's extraordinary about this. You have the power to do that. You have the ability to do it. You have the right to do that. It's just we've kind of been conditioned to seek help for things that we should be doing ourselves. And yes, if I'm in a car accident, take me to the hospital. Right. You know, if I fall off the roof or something, yeah, take me to the hospital. If my appendix bursts, take me to the emergency room. But in terms of this hurt and pain that we are holding on to, you're allowed to drop it whenever you'd like. And that's the work we do. I facilitate you fixing yourself. And that's why that list can get long like that, and all these little, not little, but these different aspects of change work that can happen is because you're the expert. You're the expert in you. So fix yourself, you know, and hypnotherapy helps you do that.
That is so powerful. And I was just watching another episode with you and Kevin McDonald talking about this very thing, how there's so, like, we had a teacher in high school. Her name was Miss George, and her thing that she drove home all the time was movies are not real. And I don't know how many times we've seen something in a movie and then just believe that that's how things are, or we see it on stage, or we see it on social media now, right? There's so much stigma around how hypnotherapy is done and what it's for.
Yeah.
Or can you talk about some of those myths? And
yeah, and it's quite unfortunate because I think the movies and the TV shows have done a lot of damage to this therapy. It's not a new therapy. It's been around for quite a while. Even you can look back in the records and history back in Greece and Egypt, and some of the modalities they were talking about in their healing chambers and their mystery schools and things sound quite a lot like hypnosis and hypnotherapy. But there's nothing magical or mystical about this work. In fact, the word hypnosis comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who is the Greek god of sleep. And back in the 1850s, there was a doctor in England, Dr. James Bard. He was a surgeon. Back in the 1850s, you don't have fancy hospitals, you don't have anesthesia, those kind of things. So if you're having your leg amputated, you're biting down on a stick, right? You're being knocked unconscious, so you don't squirm around.
Oh my goodness.
And what he started doing, Dr. James Barr, he started using this deep trance state. He put people so far into trance it looked like they were in a coma. Then he could do amputations. He could cut people open and take out tumors and sew them back up. He could deal with war wounds and injuries and things like that. Now, certainly he did not invent the trance state, just like I was saying, back in Greece and Egypt and South America and the Aboriginals of Australia and Rome and places, they were using trance in their healing work and their spiritual work. Back in India, they were using it thousands upon thousands of years ago. But in 1850, Dr. James Bard started using this trance state, needing a word to describe this coma-like state. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep. And so he named it hypnosis. So he could write about it. He could talk about it with his colleagues. And since then, this word hypnosis has grown to encompass all sorts of altered states of consciousness. And now that may sound like a kind of a scary phrase, altered state of consciousness, but it's nothing that you don't go through multiple times a day. Basically, what we're talking about is brainwave state. And the famous brainwave states we learned about in school, beta, alpha, theta, delta. And it's basically just how fast the neurons in your brain are firing. So let's say, okay, right, you and me, Gregory, the people listening to this, watching this, we're in a conscious state of awareness, going about your listeners, your watchers are going about their day, maybe doing some chores while listening to this or focusing on what they're doing. They're in a conscious state of awareness. We're firing about 18 cycles per second. So a wave is from the back to the front to the back again. All these neurons firing. Whenever I move my hands around or somebody walks down the street or takes a sip of water, you're firing neurons. That happens in a wave. You and I were probably doing 18 cycles per second. Let's say I'm back in high school math class and I'm paying attention. All this information is going to be on the test. And so I'm writing my notes and I got to do well. I got to get a good grade on this test. So I'm paying attention. I'm firing about 18 cycles per second, listening to the teacher, listening to what's going on, but it's really boring for me. And so I'm paying attention. And all of a sudden I start doing one of these. And I start staring out the window. And I'm looking at the trees blowing in the breeze. And I'm thinking about the next weekend. And it's like, oh, I got to get through a week. But man, next weekend we're going to go out of town. We're going to have some fun. We're going to go to the lake or going to go to the beach or the mountains or whatever. We're going to have a really great time. And now I've just slowed down my brainwave state. I've moved inward. I've closed off the external world. I don't hear what the teacher's saying anymore. The teacher's still talking. Kids are still asking questions and goofing off and whatever. But I've moved inward. I started daydreaming about the next weekend, what's going to happen next weekend. And now I've slowed down my brainwave state. Now I'm firing about 12 cycles per second. And then my eyes start getting heavy and I start, doing one of these and my head's nodding down and I'm not really asleep, but certainly not awake. I'm in that really cool, luscious state of theta. I'm firing about 6 cycles per second. Right as you're falling asleep, right as you're waking up on a Saturday morning. And you just want to lie in bed. That's the state of theta. Feels really good in that state. Not really awake, not really asleep. Now, pretty soon, back in high school math class, I'm going to fall asleep because this is so boring for me. And I'm going to be firing about 1 cycle per second, half cycle per second in delta. But instead, the teacher sees me, says, "Hey, Craig, why don't you come up here and do the problem on the board?" And so now I jolt back awake, and I'm looking around. I'm looking at the board, and I don't know how to do the problem on board. I wasn't paying attention. Now I'm embarrassed. Everybody's looking at me. Now I'm firing at 25 cycles per second because I'm in the stress response. And I have to get up here and do this problem that I don't know how to do. So just in a matter of 6-7 minutes, I've altered my state of consciousness 3 or 4 times. I moved from consciousness down into a daydreaming state, down to that theta hypnotic state not really sleep, not really awake, and then back up into the stress response because now I'm firing on a really high rate because I'm stressed, all within just a handful of minutes. I've altered my state of consciousness multiple times. And so this is what we do all day long. Whether you're driving home and you start thinking about, oh, I got people coming over this weekend and I got to get the house ready. I got to go to the store, get the food. And then you find yourself in your driveway, you find yourself in your parking spot, and you don't remember the last 5-6 blocks because you know how to drive home, just like you know how to tie your shoes, you know how to ride a bicycle, you know how to do it, so you just do it. So you just drove home because you know the turns, you know how fast you're supposed to go. Your subconscious mind's done it enough times, so your conscious mind went off to think of something else, an altered state of consciousness. Watching TV puts you in the alpha brainwave state, an altered state of consciousness. And so, unfortunately, back to the question you asked about TVs and movies, they use this state of hypnosis as a way to move plot forward. How are we going to get Jason Bourne to assassinate the Prime Minister of England? And it's like, well, let's just save ourselves a bunch of time and money and hassle, and let's just hypnotize them to do it. And that's not the way it works. You can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. Now, people will go, yeah, but what about those shows? What about those Las Vegas shows and comedy clubs and things? It's like, well, everybody that gets up there on one of those stages and they sing like Elvis and they dance like Michael Jackson and they, pretend they're Beyonce or they pretend they're on a roller coaster or something. Every one of those people that gets up there volunteered to be up there.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to work if you make somebody go up there. They don't want to be up there. They're embarrassed. They have straight stage fright. They're not going to do it. Everybody that gets up there, one, bought a ticket to the show.
Right.
Now they sat down on their seat and they ordered a drink or whatever, and they're excited for the show to get going. And then the hypnotist comes out, tells a few jokes and said, okay, who wants to volunteer and come up here and have a really fun time tonight? And a bunch of people raise their hands. And so he picks the people who are most excited. Yeah. And he goes, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do for a living? And do you want to go into hypnosis, have a fun show? Oh, yes, I do. And then this person makes them, do something silly, like, dance like Michael Jackson or sing like Elvis Presley or something. And then people, oh my God, look at this hypnosis. It's like, this person said yes 7 times before they even, got up on stage. And so you can't make anybody do anything you don't want to do. That's why smoking cessation, one of the things hypnotherapy is famous for, helping people to quit smoking. It's not 100% guarantee because I can't make anybody stop smoking. You have to want to stop smoking. If this appointment was, this quit smoking appointment was scheduled by your spouse, because they want you to stop smoking and they're tired of it and they're tired of the expense and they're tired of the smell and they're concerned about your health because we're all getting older. And I can't make you quit smoking if you don't want to. One great story, one of the teachers, I went to this great school, the Hypnotherapy Academy of America in Albuquerque, New Mexico, great school. People from all over the country, all over the world go to this school. 10 weeks, this school, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday for 2.5 months, 500 hours of training. And he was telling a story, the director, Tim Zimmerman, was telling a story about he had somebody come to him, paid for the smoking cessation package. And first thing he says, like, oh, I'm not going to quit. I don't want to quit. I just want to tell my wife I've tried everything, including hypnosis, and I'm going to smoke in the garage now. And guess what? He didn't quit because he didn't want to. He wanted to keep smoking. He liked smoking. His wife didn't, but he didn't want to quit smoking, so he didn't. But it just goes to show, if you want to get up on stage to have a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok and have a silly evening and act funny in front of your friends and be up on stage and do one of those comedy shows, if you want to do that and you do it, what are the chances you're going to heal? What if you want to heal? What if you do want to quit smoking? What if you want to heal that pain that you've been holding on to since you were a little kid? What are the chances you're going to be able to do that if you want to? And that's the extraordinariness of this work. I'm not doing anything to anybody.
Right.
You're coming to me because we're kind of the witch doctors because of the movies and the TV shows. We're kind of the witch doctors. So we're last resort. I get the people who have been in therapy for 5 years and nothing's worked, or they've been to the doctors and nobody can figure out what the pain is all about. or they've been to talk therapy and they keep talking and talking about, only to do a couple of sessions of hypnotherapy and find it was something totally different, and they healed it. But it's usually the therapy of last resort. But they've gone to the point where it's like they have to heal and they have to do it now. And so they do, and that's the extraordinary power of your subconscious mind. You're allowed to heal. You're allowed to let it go. So do it.
It reminds me of the quote, innovation is born of necessity.
Yeah.
And you just described my entire experience in math. Math builds on top of itself.
Yeah.
And I have ADHD. I don't like to claim it as a crutch or like an excuse for me not being able to do certain things or being a certain way. It just is what it is. My brain just operates different. I don't like to call it a disorder, though. I think it's a superpower. But you just described how I'm looking at the board, that reminds me of something else, and then I'm drifting into something else. And by the time I come back, teachers called on me because they saw me daydreaming, and I'm like, oh, what did I miss? Or that's the story of my life.
And that's the end. There's a whole nother show in and of itself. But that's the frustrating thing about education. They have one mode of educating kids that focuses on maybe just the visual learners, and everybody else who are kinesthetic learners or who are auditory learners, or have a attention deficit because they're not interested in the subject. Okay, then make the subject more interesting.
It's not our fault.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like attention deficits, or you watch these kids, and when they're really interested in something, they're hyper focused.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's not that they can't focus. It's not they're interested. It's like what you're teaching does not interest them.
Exactly.
My God. And then they're not interested. Why is that a problem? Then find a way to, if you feel it necessary for them to know this information, then you need to find a way to make it interesting for them. That's the point of education and being educators. Not to blame teachers. My God, they have the world's hardest job. You got 35 kids in a classroom, and 2 of them are acting up, and you got to give all their attention to these 2 kids. And it's a tough job, but it's also, you probably have, 10 different learning styles in those 35 kids, and you're only teaching 1. And so what are the chances that everybody's going to learn well? But again, that's a whole different subject in and of itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that have come up with just what you've talked about so far. I've been writing them down, but I noticed because I wrote in shorthand, I didn't drift off too far. So as far as hypnosis, you said you're the witch doctors, you're the last resort. Do you believe that, the innovation is born of necessity? Let's go back to that. People, what it sounds like you do is 3 principles. You extract desire, and you teach them attention and intention.
Yes.
Like, you have to want it, and they have to know what they want, and they have to actually want to, you can't, before you heal a man, you have to ask him if he's willing to walk away from the thing that's hurting him. And it sounds like you do what we do as coaches. You're not really fixing people. You're just helping them to see who they already are.
Yeah. And it could be very vague in terms of what they want. Because of course, I have them fill out an intake form, but sometimes, and the intake form has 5 or 6 different questions, basically asking the same thing, but in just different ways to give a different response from a different part of the brain. But, you may say, well, what is it you want to work on? What do you want to heal? And they may just say anxiety, or they may say anger, just one word. Maybe they write 5 paragraphs, but they may just say anger. It's like, okay, you know what you need to work on. And if it's just anger, then we'll work on the anger. You know what the anger is related to. And even if you wrote 5 paragraphs, maybe you needed to write those 5 paragraphs, but actually maybe not related to the anger. They're at least the root issue.
Right.
But you know what the problem is because your subconscious mind is trying to protect you from that issue. It's sort of like we have files in a big filing cabinet within our subconscious mind. And each file is a hurt and a trauma and a terror and a fear and something that's caused anger and anxiety and worry and overall humiliation and embarrassment. And it keeps these files because it doesn't want to experience that again. Your subconscious mind is for you.
Yeah.
It may not seem like that, but your subconscious mind is for you. And its main job is to keep you safe and protected. It's for your survival. Now, of course, it's running our immune system, running our digestive system, beating our heart, growing our hair, growing us as bodies from day one till the end of life. And it's doing all this automatically. We don't have to think about it, which is nice. It's holding on to those habits we have of walking, riding a bicycle, driving a car, tying our shoes, zipping up a jacket, all these things. It's holding on to all these things, but the main task is survival, to keep us safe and protected. It's for you. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's for your happiness and success. It's to keep you survive, to survive. It's for your protection. And it'll warn you if it senses danger in the external environment. Sort of like somebody pulls the fire alarm in a building.
Yeah.
The sirens go off, the lights go off, warning everybody that there's danger in the building and you need to get out. You need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system in our bodies, but not sirens and lights. We have feelings. The feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of anger, the feeling state of fear, the feeling state of worry. These are warnings that there is danger in the external environment, and our minds are trying to warn us through getting our attention through these quote unquote negative emotions. Now, if somebody's managing the building and does some fire alarm tests, and nobody's heeding the warnings, they're going to turn up the volume on the fire alarm. So, nobody hears this thing. Nobody's leaving the building during the fire alarm test. So I'm going to turn up the volume to make sure everybody hears. We're going to make the strobe lights even brighter and faster. Well, same with our bodies. If you're not paying attention to if you're ignoring it or covering it up with whatever, unresourceful, self-soothing behavior that you may be trying to numb yourself with, it's going to keep turning up the volume on this until the point where it just becomes too much. But again, it's not against you. It's just trying to warn you that there's danger. The problem is, or the big issue is, the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And this is most noticeable when somebody's having a nightmare. And it doesn't matter how crazy this nightmare is in the middle of the night. You're deep asleep, fast asleep, cozy, comfortable in bed. And then you have this crazy dream about, a gigantic cheeseburger and it's two hot dog friends throwing coconuts at you, running down the street. Stupid. It's not going to happen. Or maybe something super realistic, like a war veteran having a PTSD dream about being back on the front lines, even though the war is 30 years ago. Or they're super ridiculous, super stupid, or something super scary, like being back in war. If you're a veteran, it's not happening. You're safe and comfortable in bed, but your body can't tell. Your mind can't tell. So it starts creating that adrenaline, that cortisol. Adrenaline, you've heard the crazy stories of grandmothers lifting cars off of babies. That's adrenaline doing that. It's now coursing through your body. Your body's creating neuropeptides, these molecules. The brain creates hundreds of millions of these molecules that are looking for cells in your body to give the message of emotion. So that's why you get that feeling state. You can differentiate anger from depression, from despair to joy to happiness to anxiety because of the feeling state in your body. That's caused by these molecules, literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, molecules of anger now moving through your body. 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of your arms to fight your way out of this. 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of your legs to escape. It's got to be shutting down your digestive system, powering down your immune system, because that energy has to come from somewhere. All because a cheeseburger's chasing down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's ridiculous. It's not going to happen. But your mind has this shoot first, ask questions later protocol.
Yes.
Because its main job is to keep you safe and protected. It's not against you. It's just trying to keep you safe and protected. And so it may instigate a protocol of safety that's maybe not very resilient or not very resourceful. And the more you practice this, the better you get at it. But again, its main job is to keep you safe and protected and emotionalize all that to give you the siren, the warning signal that there's danger, even if it's not real, it's imaginary. So that's the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind that creates your goals, the mind that comes up with the plans to achieve those goals and the willpower to achieve those goals. That's your conscious mind. But what neuroscience says is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. 95% of mind is the subconscious mind. So whenever there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind. The emotional mind wins every time. And that's why sometimes you use your logical mind to analyze your situation.
Yeah.
I was in this situation when I was 25. I was in this relationship. I was at work. My parents had this, were not the greatest parents. And you analyze the situation and you logically go through it. But emotionally, you may be still afraid of going home, or whatever the situation is. There's an angry voice at work and you shut down, and logically it doesn't make any sense. Somebody's
Right.
just mad because Microsoft decided to update their software, and they're right in the middle of their presentation and lost everything, so they're yelling and screaming. Has nothing to do with you. And logically you can move, oh yeah, they're angry at this computer problem or the accounting problem, whatever. But emotionally, it reminds you of something that maybe happened when you were a little kid. And so you shut down emotionally, and you just, there goes the rest of your day. It doesn't make any sense logically, but that's not the part of the mind that's in charge of this. Your subconscious mind is trying to protect you. And, in terms of the stress response, we have the most famous ones are fight or flight. You're either going to fight the danger or escape, but there's also freeze and faint.
What?
And so if your mode of protecting yourself is to quote unquote play dead, you may just freeze and go numb.
Wow.
And while that's, not the greatest way to maybe defend yourself, that's what you do. You learn to do as a kid. And maybe that was the best thing you could have done, when you were a kid, to keep yourself safe. That doesn't work when you're an adult. But you don't know any better, because this is the instructions you put in as a child. And so logically, it doesn't make any sense. You can analyze it all day long and go to maybe a talk therapist and discuss it, and they logically, analyze it and give you some advice, and you process that logically and say, yeah, I agree with you. That's what I should probably be doing. But if the problem is held within the emotional mind, why would anything change? Until you work with the emotional mind, that subconscious mind. And that's what hypnotherapy works so well at. Even Freud was a hypnotherapist. He started training first as a hypnotherapist. There are still two schools of hypnotherapy in Vienna back in the late 1800s. He was at one of them. And he just wasn't very good at the inductions. And it's also, again, there's more control when you're in talk therapy and you're advising somebody, telling them what their problem is. And, when that didn't work for him, he started prescribing cocaine. It's like, and he probably OD'd somebody. One of his patients OD'd on cocaine, and it was probably due to his prescription. And it's like, that's the stuff you don't hear about that guy. He was a hypnotherapist, but he didn't like that so much. He wanted to analyze people and logically tell them what their problem was. And then when that wasn't working so well, he'd, make them feel better in other ways.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is powerful, powerful stuff. We're all in a trance state of some sort, whether you're in the trance state of being at work and concentrating, or being on the computer, or, the trance state of what you have to do, Gregory, especially once the interview is done. Now you got this trance state of social media work you got to get going. And then once that's done, maybe you go off and you have a relationship, and you're in the trance state of, like myself, I'm a husband. But I'm a father. I'm also a son to my parents. These are three different trance states I find myself in, because I act differently to my parents than I do as a father to my son, right? And so I find myself in these trance states. So what hypnotherapy is really doing is, well, what trance state do you not like? And let's find a different trance state to be in. You don't want to be in the trance state of anxiety or anger or pain anymore. So how about let's create a trance state of joy and happiness? And you're allowed to do that. Anytime, it's just, it may take some releasing work of past hurt and pain, but it doesn't take months or years to do. You are that powerful. So
Yes,
yeah.
I believe this in my core, and I've seen it work. But I have recently created a trance state of, and this is how insidious it can be, because you don't even realize you're building a habit until it's too late, right? So there's a couple things that you said that I want to dig a little deeper into. So the subconscious can be reprogrammed by anyone at any time, because everything is basically building a habit. It's just what you practice the most, right?
Yeah.
So I did EMDR back in 2014, 2015. This therapist was writing down everything I was saying, and he's writing it on the whiteboard, and he says, what do all these things have in common? And I'm sitting there and I'm really trying to figure out like what the thing is that they have in common. Throws the marker at the whiteboard. He's like, it's you. I didn't even see that I was the reason for my reality at that time. And I was in a relationship that kind of felt like an Stockholm syndrome. Like I fell in love with my kidnapper. And that's a whole nother story for another day. But that EMDR treatment, you have the fobs in each hand, they buzz bilaterally. You have the headphones on, it beeps from ear to ear, and then they tell you, like you said with hypnotherapy, one word. Let's start with that one thing. My word was the B word, because that's what came to mind when I thought of the situation I was in. And he's just like, whatever comes next, keep saying it, keep saying it, keep saying it.
Yeah.
And I went deep. I've been in 12-step programs. I've done the deep work and done the 12 steps and all that stuff to remove the roots for why because you said something earlier about, where was it? You said something about, we don't even know like the root of the trauma that's making us. And like every time we put something on top of it, we're just delaying it. Right.
Yeah.
And so what EMDR treatment did for me, I went all the way through in like one session, and the guy was like, whoa, are you okay? Because I got to the end where like no more things were flashing in my head. And like you said, it's like a desktop. There's a bunch of files everywhere. There's like trauma.png and like, happy memory.mov or whatever. Like there's these files, and they're all your memories and all the experiences you've had. And if you just build a habit of putting it on the desktop and not organizing it, and someone comes and clicks around on your desktop, right, pushes your buttons, they're going to open trauma on accident, and they don't even know what happened. Like there's no connection. When it got to the point where there was nothing else flashing at me, it was just a memory of my mom and dad on the couch. The last time I remember them being together, we were watching a movie together. And like, that was the last time I was truly like safe and happy.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was the root. Like from there, that night they fought, he left, I never saw him again.
Oh my God.
Okay. Did not realize that was the root of all the addiction, all the other stuff. And so what EMDR treatment did, it made me feel like my brain was submerged in water. Like I felt really drowsy afterwards. I was like, I didn't even realize I was crying. Just my face was like caked on with tears. And it felt like after that, someone made folders, and they put all of the trauma in trauma folder. They put all of the happy memories in happy memory folder. They put all the different relationships I'd been in, so that they wouldn't get confused. When one clicks, it's not going to trigger the past memories of the other one. So it organized my desktop in my brain. And I wanted to ask, like, how, there's a question here. I just don't know how to ask it. So, do you do EMDR? Is that like,
okay. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about that, because that's a great modality. And a big reason for that therapy and why it works so well is because when you're in anxiety, you're in panic, you're in deep fear, you're lighting up a part of the right side of the brain. So this part of the right side of the brain is lighting up and getting hysterical with panic and fear and worry and anger. And, as we learned back in high school science class, energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it just doesn't turn on. It needs fuel, it needs energy, it needs blood supply, it needs oxygen. So where's that coming from? It's pulling it, it's vacuuming it away from these other parts of the brain. So these other parts of the brain go dark, and it goes, zaps it all up into this part right here. So this part's all energized and lit up. Wow. So how do you undo that? Well, it's bilateral stimulation. And you're talking about, the things in the fist, and you're talking about the binaural beats in your ears, boop, 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 things like that. Right side of the brain's controlling the left side of the body. left side of the brain is controlling the right side of the body. I may be reversed on camera, but I'm doing it right on my side. And when you operate on the other side of the body, so like here I am squeezing my little stress ball. So I'm squeezing it with my left hand. So therefore the right side of my brain is activating. Now I can switch it to the other side. Now I'm squeezing it with my right hand, and now I'm operating on the left side of the brain. I need fuel and energy to just do this little simple exercise of crossing my, if you're just listening to this, if you put your arms out, and only do this if you're in a safe place, not if you're driving, if you're watching, supervising the kids around the pool, only do this if you're in a safe place and you can concentrate this. Otherwise, clock it where we are time-wise and come back to it when Gregory puts up the replay. But if you outstretch your hands, and if you just grabbed anything, something that's non-breakable, not a glass, not a mug, not your phone, but a pen, or here, I'll grab a pen even. And if you just make a T with your arms, make that cross, and then meet your hands in the middle and exchange whatever the object is to the other hand. Now you're doing bilateral stimulation. Now you're operating in different parts of the brain. You need fuel and oxygen and blood supply to do this. And so it's now pulling it away from all that stress and anxiety part of the brain, so you feel better. Now, the therapy you were doing, Gregory, you're specifically coming up with words or phrases or images or movies or feeling states while you're doing this. And so it's dissipating that while you're doing this, whether you're feeling the stuff in your palms or you're hearing it, there's auditory bilateral stimulation. Yeah. If anybody remembers, like back in school or maybe in a meeting, there was somebody drumming on their knees, and they're not hyper, they're not ADHD, they're nervous, and they're self-soothing themselves by doing bilateral stimulation. Tapping on your knees like that, drumming on your knees, is bilateral stimulation. Even feeling it on your knees is bilateral stimulation. You can snap your fingers. You don't have to have fancy headphones with the binaural beats. Those are cool if you have it. If you don't have access to that, snap your fingers next to your ears. Bilateral stimulation. You could do in Montessori schools and Waldorf schools, they do these exercises called brain gym. And one of them is like they'll put their hands together in front of them with their thumbs up. Like they'll clasp their hands, thumbs up, and then they'll do the infinity symbol or the sideways 8. And with the middle point being right in the center of you, and then do a circle to the right and then circle to the left, following it with their eyeballs, keeping your head straight, but following it with your eyeballs. This is bilateral stimulation. And what the teacher is doing is one, opening up both sides of the brain, operating now on the left and the right, the mathematical language left side and the creative, musical, colorful, imaginative right side, and calming the kids down. And it's a genius. And so that's something everybody can do in their life. Find some form of bilateral stimulation, whether it's touch, like tapping your knees, walking, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. That's bilateral stimulation. That's why walking feels so good. But I want to show you an exercise. We talked about this before we got on air. But I want to show you a quick little exercise that you can do. That one involves bilateral stimulation. But this is something everybody can do. And again, if you're driving your car, if you're listening to this while driving, or you're supervising the kids around the swimming pool or cooking with fire or whatever, do this later. Come back to this when the replay happens, clock where we are on the interview, and then come back to this later. But this is a great little exercise you can do in 5 minutes. And it will reset your nervous system and literally change the chemistry within your brain. And I'll explain it as we go through it, but it's very simple. And it's a process developed by Dr. Richard Nongard, who's a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist, been doing this work for about 50 years now. And it's called 3, 2, 1 reset. The 3 is 3 slow, easy, gentle breaths. Now, the breath is the great regulator of your nervous system. 1, it's cleansing and cleaning. Of course, it's you're breathing in oxygen. You're delivering that to the cells, to the muscles, and to the tissues of your organs. As it's doing that, you're picking up the carbon dioxide, the gases and toxins. You exhale all that stuff out. So you're cleansing and cleaning. But when we're stressed, we just breathe into the top part of our lungs. And if you've ever seen a diagram of a lung, a picture of a lung in a biology book, the lungs are huge at the bottom. If you feel where your rib cage is like 2 inches from your hips. The lungs are huge. But if we're just breathing into the top part of our lungs, you're only using maybe 1/4, 1/5 of your lung capacity. But this rib cage is here for your heart and lungs, to protect your heart and lungs. The only thing protecting the vital organs of your abdomen are the muscles. And so when you're stressed, when you feel you are threatened, you'll tighten your stomach muscles, waiting for that 1-2 punch. And so you can't get a deep breath in. You need those big belly breaths, those big abdominal breaths. And so as the blood flows around your body, it's picking up the carbon dioxide, gases and toxins, as it's delivering the oxygen, it arrives back at your lungs. You exhale out all that carbon dioxide, gases and toxins, breathe in all that oxygen, and now it carries it around. And so here, let me reach out a frame real quick. I didn't know we were going to do this, but I have some visual.
Man, we're getting the bonus. Thank you.
Yeah, you're getting the bonus thing. And so, so flowing through the top third of your lungs is about half a cup of blood every minute. So every minute, half a cup of blood is being cleansed and cleaned of that carbon dioxide and the gases and toxins. And every minute, that half a cup of blood is being oxygenated, which then takes that oxygen to the rest of your body. The bottom of your lungs, 1 liter of blood. And so this is a liter of Gatorade, but this is a liter. And 60 of these an hour, but only if you're breathing deeply into your abdomen, blowing up your belly, so you get that air. 20% of this, I don't know, that's maybe 20%. 20% of this is going directly to your brain for calm, rational thinking. Deep breathing is it for a lot of people. So this is half a cup. This is half a cup. This is stress breathing. This is deep, relaxed breathing into your abdomen, into your belly. So you flatten out the diaphragm, so you get into the bottom of your lungs. This is it for a lot of people in terms of turning off the stress response. 20% is going to your brain. So which do you want to fuel your brain with? Deep breathing. And this is what it's for, like test anxiety or, public speaking fear or something like that, where you're about to go into a meeting. Deep breathing will literally fuel your brain. So the other aspect of breathing is we have all these nerves that come out of our brain attached to all parts of our body. That's that thing when you touch a hot pot, a signal goes up your nerve to your brain, says you're touching a hot pot, let it go. It goes back down to your hand and you let it go, all within a millionth of a second. The 10th cranial nerve is the vagus nerve. And vagus is Latin for wanderer, because this nerve attaches to the eyes, to the ears, muscles of your jaw, goes past your vocal cords, attaches to your heart, to your lungs, and to your gut. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. So 2 parts of the nervous system that apply to what we're talking about here today is the sympathetic, the stress response, the fight or flight stress response, and the parasympathetic, the relaxation response, is what we're supposed to be in most of the time. So that's when all the systems and organs of your body are getting the right amount of nutrients and fuel and oxygen and blood supply to work at optimum levels. When your stress response, that gets pulled away to, again, the big muscles, to fight, to escape, dropping all that adrenaline and cortisol and fear into your system. So we want to be in the parasympathetic. The vagus nerve is a big part of the parasympathetic nervous system. It's attached to the lungs. Breathing deeply, slowly, and gently, it stimulates the vagus nerve, therefore activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation response. How simple is this? This isn't hard. Deep breathing. That's why it's so important in yoga, so important in martial arts, so important in Tai Chi and Qigong. And there's a whole subsection of yoga called pranayama that just focuses on the breath. This is how important this is. This will regulate your nervous system. You have the power to do that. And deep breathing. And we don't know, and we get used to not doing that. But watch a baby breathe. Babies breathe all into their abdomens, because that's a lot of growth between day 1 and 2 years old. And those tiny little lungs need a lot of oxygen for all that growth. So they breathe into their bellies. But right around, guess what? When we enter school, we're getting nervous. These new people, these strange people in this strange place. And so we start protecting ourselves. We start armoring ourselves. We start tightening our stomach muscles until pretty much by high school, it's all upper chest breathing. And so what you practice, you get better at. Whether you're riding a bicycle, learning to walk, doing martial arts or dance or whatever sport, what you practice, you get better at. So what if you're practicing anxiety and stress and anger? And so deep breathing, and again, not right now, unless it's safe to do so, but at some point, maybe later on today, lay down on the ground, like find a comfortable place to be, and just practice belly breaths. It may take a minute to like release those muscles because they've been clenched for so long, trying to protect you, trying to armor you. So find it, later on today, not right now, unless it's safe to do so. Find a place to lie down on the floor or a comfortable place that's kind of firm, and just belly breathe. Practice belly breathing and relax those muscles. Again, it may take a moment. So that was a long explanation for breathe deeply. And I know that's obnoxious, and I know that's cliche to tell somebody to take a deep breath when they're anxious or nervous, but that's literally one of the best things you can do for yourself to regulate your nervous system and reset yourself. So 3, 2, 1 reset, 3 slow, gentle breaths. We're then going to create that bilateral stimulation. Remember, moving from left side of the brain, right side of the brain, but we're going to grab our shoulders. So if it's safe to do so, grab your shoulders, and you may notice you have now created a hug. This, not only are you creating bilateral stimulation, but you've created a hug. This is loving, nurturing, healing touch. And you can just, squeeze your shoulders. You can give yourself a bear hug. You can do the havening technique. Let me save you $3,000 for going to a havening technique workshop. This is havening technique. Rub your hands up and down your shoulders from wrist to shoulders. This feels good. It feels wonderful. And if you're feeling good, that means you're changing your brain chemistry. This is loving, healing touch. You're now sending a signal from your nerves back up to your brain. And you're sending the message of healing, of love, of deep connection, this hug. Your brain is now shutting off the adrenaline, the cortisol, now creating oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine. You're now changing your brain chemistry. You're now going to, again, only if this is safe for you, and if not, then do this later. But if you're driving a car, watching the kids, do this later. Cooking with a sharp knife, do this later. But close your eyes if this is safe for you to do so while you're giving yourself this hug and breathing deeply. And think of somebody you want to give a hug to. And this could be somebody in your life today. Maybe it's a family member. Maybe it's a good friend. It could be a pet, a dog, a cat. Maybe you align yourself with a spirit animal, a power animal, the tiger, the hawk, the elephant, the bear, whatever it is. Or maybe it's somebody who's no longer with us, your grandmother, your grandfather. Maybe it's somebody you've never met before. Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Joan of Arc, somebody you've never met before but inspires you. As you're feeling this hug, think of somebody you want to give a hug to. And again, you're now resetting your entire nervous system. You're literally changing the chemistry within your brain, creating the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine, the hormones, the feel-good hormones, as well as creating those neuropeptides, literal molecules of joy, happiness, and love, now flooding your system. And if you want, you can even add humming into this. While you're thinking of that person, hum something. Because when you hum, it makes it impossible to think of bad things. And
wow,
the vagus nerve goes past the vocal cords. As you hum or sing, you stimulate the vagus nerve, because those vibrations of the vocal cords will stimulate the vagus nerve, therefore, again, activate the parasympathetic. That's why singing and humming feels so good. And even if you're driving a car, you can hum. Keep your eyes open, hum a happy tune, hum an exciting song, sing an exciting song, And so these are just, 3, 2, 1 reset. And in any one of those things in and of itself is great. The deep breathing, the bilateral stimulation, the humming, the thinking of a person you care for. Put those all together, and you've got a powerful tool to reset your entire nervous system and reset your brain. And that's the power you have. You can 5 minutes, 6 minutes of doing that extra. You can do it for half an hour if you want. But if you're about to walk into a meeting at work, you're about to walk into a test in a class, you're about to walk out onto the field for the event, or the presentation you're about to get, or that first date, or you're about to be married, or you're about to meet your in-laws, or whatever. Practice this, and it'll set yourself. Go sit in your car before work, or find the bathroom or your office if you can close the door and close the blinds or whatever. Find a private place, and this exercise will reset yourself, and do it multiple times a day. Start in the morning, because this also refocuses your reticular activating system. And that's part of the brain that is always looking for danger. That's its main job. That's why in the middle of the night, you hear the baby crying in the next room. You're deep asleep, and you hear the baby crying, and you wake up. You're too hot, you're too cold, you wake up. You hear the back door creak open at 2:00 in the morning, you wake up. You smell smoke, you wake up. Your reticular activating. You're driving down the street, and our peripheral vision, you see that car heading towards the red light, so you slam on the brakes. That's your reticular activating system. It's also part of mind when you're thinking about buying a new car, you're thinking about buying a Toyota Prius. Now you see Toyota Priuses everywhere, right? They were there yesterday and last year and 10 years ago, but you didn't notice them because you're not focused on them. There's no reason to think of a Prius. But now you see them everywhere because you're finding a solution to the new car. And then you think, well, I like being outdoors, I like being out in nature, I like camping and backpacking. I should get a 4-wheel drive car. I should get a Jeep. Well, now you refocus your reticular activating system. Now you see Jeeps everywhere. Yes. Well, this is the thing. When your day goes from bad to worse, it's because you focused your attention on nothing but problems. And this is the issue with the mind or our entire system. We're being inundated with 11 million bits of information per second through our 5 senses. What we see, what we hear, taste, touch, smell. Temperature of the room, maybe something you don't notice unless it's too hot or too cold. The lights in the room, which you don't notice unless it's too dim, it's too dark, or it's too bright. The sounds, you don't notice the hum of the air conditioner or the heater or the fan or the hum of the leaf blower 3 blocks away unless you put your mind on it, or unless it's too loud. We're being inundated with 11 million bits of information. We're only cognizant of 50 bits out of that 11 million. So we have to filter out a lot of stuff. So if you focus your attention on problems, it's going to show you problems.
Wow.
And it's going to ignore all the good stuff in life. So what if you started your day with 3, 2, 1 reset? You flooded your brain with oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, that the joy of that person you care for, whether they're here in this life with us or not, whether you have even met them or not, whether it's a pet, a dog, a cat. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. We started off with this. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And it'll change your physiology to match what you're thinking and feeling. That's why a nightmare can feel so real, even though it's crazy and ridiculous. Like a cheeseburger throwing a coconut at you. It'll change your physiology. So why don't we do that for good? Why don't we do that to 180 and hug yourself, actually feel the physical sensation of hugging yourself, send those signals up to your brain, as well as think of somebody you want to give a hug to, and literally change your entire system, and then do it again and do it again and do it again. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. And a great example of this is the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama is 89 years old, and the man still meditates every day. And read his books. He talks about the anger and the despair and the sorrow of what's going on in Tibet, let alone the rest of the world. And Chinese government still bulldozing down his monasteries, building roads and bridges and buildings and whatnot, and arresting his monks, torturing his monks. Of course, he's going to feel anger. He's a human being. Anger and despair and sorrow about it. He was exiled out of Tibet in like 1957, something like that. And so he's going to feel a lot of anger around that sometimes, but he doesn't want that to be who he is.
Right.
And he knows that what's strong within your mind, within your body, is what you do over and over again. So every day, the Dalai Lama practices loving kindness and compassion meditation. That's what he does. That's his work. Wow. And if anybody was to have it down by now, you think it'd be that guy. I mean, he's not married.
Right.
He has a staff of people to meet his every need and want. And granted, he has great responsibility, but he doesn't have a lot of the life challenges many of us encounter. in terms of work that maybe we don't care for, and relationships and elderly parents and young children and taxes and all that stuff. He still practices every day. Ask any 10th degree black belt in judo or taekwondo. They still practice every day. Yo-Yo Ma, considered the greatest cello player alive today. 67 years old, he still practices the cello every day. What is strongest within your mind is what you do over and over again. So what if you're practicing fear? What if you're practicing anxiety? What if you're practicing anger? You're just going to get better and better and better at it. So part of the work, not only is it healing work that we do in a session, in a hypnotherapy session, but it's what do you want more of? You want more joy? You want more happiness? You want more confidence, strength, power? You can have it, but there's a certain relentlessness to this. It doesn't take years and months to create change. Within less than a week, by practicing every day, you can literally start seeing your brain being rewired, neurons forming together. You can literally see that within less than a week. So within less than a week, by doing practice every day, you can start rewiring your brain. And the University College of London says it takes 66 days to create a habit. So that's 2 months, a little over 2 months. So in less than a week, you're rewiring your brain. In about 2 months, you have a new habit. New habit of what? Joy, happiness, love, confidence, success, playing piano, whatever it is. But it does take practice. Michael Phelps, the most medalist winning athlete in the Olympics in swimming, he didn't stop practicing when he won his 24th medal. He kept practicing and won 28, 29 medals total. I guarantee he's probably still practicing now, And so if you want to master something, it does take practice, but it doesn't take years and years and years. Maybe to master, certainly at 10,000 hours. But in terms of creating a habit of feeling good, I just take, a handful of weeks to actually create that change. And a simple little 5-minute exercise like 3, 2, 1 reset is a great way amongst whatever else you may be doing, whatever your practice is, whatever works best for you. And again, it's because the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And so mentally rehearse the person you want to be. Pretend you are that person. You don't have the joy and happiness right now. Pretend you have the joy and the happiness. And the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined, and literally wire that into your brain.
This reminds me of be, do, have. Be the person, do the thing, have the reality. And I had a bunch of questions here, and you checked off all of them with just talking about it.
Yeah.
This is so huge. I keep saying this every time I have a new podcast with a person that is deeply studied in their field, but this has to be the best podcast I've done thus far.
Oh, thank you, Gregory. I appreciate that.
Just mind-blowing. People are going to watch this, and let me confirm here.
Sure.
I was doing the deep breathing to my belly. I know this stuff, right? But you mentioned that it's 66 days to build a new habit, and that you have to be relentless, be part of the no matter what club. Focus on doing the thing consistently. You can't just do it one time and be healed. And also, it's not like 2, 3, 5, 10 years to change. It's just consistent long enough. What you practice, you get better.
Yeah. I mean, a great example is just working out. You just don't get to go to the gym, work with a personal trainer once, and then you look like a Marvel superhero. It's and Beck, you may be too young to remember this guy, but maybe some of your listeners of a certain age will remember Jack LaLanne. And Jack LaLanne, he was the Richard Simmons before Richard Simmons. And in the 1960s, 1970s, Jack LaLanne was the man. He was the health expert. He was on all the shows: Merv Griffin, Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson. He'd do feats of strength, but also talk about health and nutrition. He was a vegetarian back in the 70s. He was a juicer. He had his own, blenders, and he had his own line of gyms. You can go to the Jack LaLanne gym and work out. And so he was kind of the health expert, the world famous one. And kind of Richard Simmons became even bigger than him. But his feat of strength every year on his birthday, people might remember, he would swim a lake while pulling rowboats filled with people. So he'd pull these little rowboats filled with 5 people each and just swim across. And he was doing that into his 80s. He was working out the day before he died at the age of 96 because there's a relentlessness to this work. And whether you're building your body, building your mind, building your emotions, building your spirit, there's work to this. And ask the Dalai Lama when you quit. Ask Jack LaLanne when you quit. I mean, you can't now because he's dead, but you know what I mean? It's like, ask Yo-Yo Ma when you stop practicing. You keep going. Ask Michael Phelps when you stop practicing. If you want to master anything, and whether it's a sport, a musical instrument, loving kindness and compassion like the Dalai Lama, or something else, confidence, joy, whatever it is, you can master it. Doesn't take long to start creating the habit, but it does take a certain relentlessness. It doesn't take months and years to change. You can start rewiring your brain in about a week, create a habit through practice every day, even if it's just 5-10 minutes here and there. You can create that habit within 2 months or so. But it does take a certain relentlessness, right? Right now we have that movie Deadpool and Wolverine is out right now, July 2024, and Hugh Jackman was done with Wolverine. He had to work out every day for 10 years to keep that Wolverine body. He was tired, but whatever the deal was, they offered him enough money to charity or promoted his next, or whatever the deal was. He had to spend a year getting in shape to get that Wolverine body. But he just didn't stop eating, sweets for a week and lift a 5-pound dumbbell for a couple of days. He had to work out for a year to get that Wolverine body back, and then continue to work out while filming to keep that body. And so there's a certain relentlessness to getting the goals that you want. And again, whether it's a physical thing, your goal is to run a 10K or marathon or, swim or whatever. There's a certain relentlessness, or learn a musical instrument or give a speech, become a great public speaker. There's a certain relentlessness to this. And you practice, and even a certain aspect of sitting on the couch or finding a recliner or somewhere comfortable to sit and just pretend you are that person. That'll literally rewire that in your head. It's not hard, but you just got to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can keep you here all day.
Well, it's fun talking, and I know I go on and on and on, but this is extraordinary stuff, and you have an extraordinary podcast, and I was excited to be asked to be on and be invited. So certainly I'd love to come back sometime when we'll go over more stuff.
I would absolutely love that. Like, I want to make this at least a monthly or quarterly thing, man, because you've got so much to give, and you've already given so much. So thank you so much for coming on today. The only reason I'm ending is because I have another podcast at 2, and then I have a Focus Mastery workshop at 4 today, where I'm going to be teaching people pretty much the same thing, as like how to focus their energy and their attention to get exactly what they want and become that person. The one thing I was going to ask is, can we program a different future into our subconscious mind? But you confirm that.
Yeah. You just got to pretend. I mean, I guarantee you, every Olympic athlete right now, it's, summer of 2024, the Olympics are happening. I guarantee you, every one of those people in Olympic Village is spending at least part of their day mentally rehearsing their event. And whether it's gymnastics and they're a solo event like gymnastics, or they're swimming and they're visualizing jumping into the pool 1/10 of a second before everybody else. I guarantee you, every single athlete in Olympic Village right now is mentally rehearsing, because it's wiring that success into their brains. And so that's the kind of fear of this, is like, well, not fear, but it's like, what if you're visualizing failure? What if you're visualizing hurt and pain? Are you literally not wiring that into your brain? So that gets a little tense to think about that. So, but it's a wake up call.
Yes.
Let's start today. Don't worry about yesterday. Your future is based on what you're doing today, not yesterday. So
on, Craig, man, this is beautiful. Start today. What you practice, you get better at. Become relentless. 3, 2, 1 reset. Start today. You can change your life literally by breathing, hugging yourself, and humming. Like,
thinking of that person you want to give a hug to, because then you light up that visual part of the brain, and yeah, it's beautiful.
that is so beautiful. I feel like I am a changed man. Just it's not that I didn't know these things, it's that I didn't
Yeah.
know, or I forgot that
Yeah. Well, and there's
practice.
something about learning why they help.
Yes.
It's one thing to tell somebody to take a deep breath. It's another to explain, yeah, you can literally turn on the parasympathetic nervous system through deep breathing. Now that becomes powerful.
So the thing that came to mind immediately as you were talking is three last questions, and then
Okay.
I'll let us let our viewers and everyone go. Uh, although I don't want to, because this is so powerful. So the first thing that came to mind is, do you have a book about this, like a book that teaches this? Because if not, you should.
Yeah, I have a book. I wrote a couple of books about 10 years ago. One's called Depression 180. The other's called Mind Mastery Blueprint. And it's literally depression180.com and mindmasteryblueprint.com. I didn't do the Amazon thing. I was doing a self-publishing thing. You can find those there. But that's what that ACE test course is all about. You know, it's focused on test anxiety, or if you're doing auditions or a job interview, something like that. But it's to deal with the nervous system, specifically around tests, because I didn't see any comprehensive program out there for test anxiety. My son was dealing with it and some of his friends. And so I was helping them, and I just, noticed the need out there. So I created this course of ACE test, acetest.com. And that's what that course is about. And whether it's public speaking or having to run the meeting at work, something like that. But if you're feeling nervous around those kind of things, that's what that course is all about.
This is beautiful. So I'm glad I asked, because people can actually continue the conversation with you.
Yeah.
They can work with you. You said Mind Mastery Blueprint.com. I'm putting these in the chat. Well, we're live, so this is actually commenting on all the
Right
now. So your links are there. You got acetest.com, depression180.com, and mindmasteryblueprint.com. Go get yourself a copy of the book, either one or both.
Yeah.
I am going to be writing a book on focus mastery, and I don't know if you're open to co-authoring.
Oh, yeah.
That would be awesome. And then the last two questions. So this is something I want to start on the podcast as a tradition of asking, or what do you want to say or ask to your future self?
Oh, yeah. You asked me that at the beginning before we got on. And I thought that was such a great question. What do I want to ask my future self? And, I was working with somebody just on myself. I was doing my own personal work. And they were saying, they were pointing out to me that I focus a lot on other people because of the work I do and just with family, what's going on right now. And I'm not taking care of myself. I know how to do the work, and I tell other people how to do work. I'm not taking the time for myself. And probably what I'd want my future self, or would ask my future self, am I taking the time? Am I allowing the healing work for myself? I mean, the Dalai Lama takes time for himself to meditate every day. Am I doing that for myself? And some days is no, I'm not. And I feel it at the end of the week. If it's been a few days or a week or so when I haven't been taking care of myself, I've been doing my own self-care work because of what's going on in life. And I know life gets challenging and it gets distracting, and there are big, family issues of elderly parents and children and things like that, distract the attention. And I was talking to this person, they were saying, it doesn't sound like you're doing anything for you, to reset yourself. I mean, I just told her, all these people, this great exercise. And I'm like, am I doing that? And it's a great reminder. It's like, what you practice, you get better at. And there's a relentlessness to this.
Yeah.
And if you feel that burnout, you feel that exhaustion, that spiritual exhaustion, that emotional exhaustion, it's like you need to take some time for yourself and rest and reboot yourself. And you're allowed to do that. You have the right to do that for that self-care. And that's probably what I tell myself. That I hope at my future self in a year from now realizes that and is being better about that. And that's the thing. I know better. I know better, and yet you just get caught up in the events of life, and you start over again. Tomorrow's another day. So this, you correct and continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I get an amen? That is beautiful, man. So you're preaching to the choir. The gift we have to offer the world is often the thing we cannot give to ourselves. And that's just a great reminder. It's a beautiful statement and question to your future self. I hope that when you come back and watch this again in a year, that you've made those changes, you've become a part of that relentless club of 3-2-1 reset and taking the time or scheduling time intentionally for yourself. There's a great book by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And very beginning of the book, they talk about intentionally scheduling 180 days to do nothing in the year. And I cannot wait to get to that point where I can do that. Last thing, and I guess you've already answered this, but where can they find you?
Yeah, the best way, as you mentioned in the beginning, my hypnotherapy business is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona. Probably the best way, if you were just to Google Flagstaff hypnosis, you'll see Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy pop up in the search results. That's me. Also ACE AnyTest. That's a real easy one to remember. aceanytest.com. You'll find my email through there.
This is incredible. So, Arizona
Integrative Hypnotherapy. Yeah. And if anybody needs advice on how to create a really complicated business name, let me know. And I'll help you for free. Because now that I'm trying to explain this on podcasts, I'm like, boy, that is really complicated. I don't even know if I could spell all of that. So,
oh my gosh, that's funny. We're over here trying to simplify it, and you're like, I hope you make it harder. That's great. I'm going to drop that link in there too. Look at you, video ready to amaze people. Man, this has been amazing. Tara said that this is record tags in the comments for different people to join. This is record engagement in the chat and record amount of gems dropped in 1 hour. Thank you so much for coming on, Craig. We're gonna exit the stage left and talk for just a second, and then I'm gonna end the stream with thank you for joining and watching Question Everything. I hope you got value out of this, and share it with someone. Like, comment, subscribe, share, and we'll see you next time.